So say you have a full hollow body. You love to play straight ahead jazz on, but the feedback drives you crazy when you crank it up. Or maybe it's not versatile enough for your blues or fusion gigs. Or maybe you just own a solid body and are getting into jazz and you're in the market for a hollow body. But you don't want a full archtop.
No.
Well, the solution in all of these scenarios is a semi-hollow body. And in this video, I'm going to cover 10 great semi-hollow bodies for different budgets. Coming up next. Greetings from the Jazz Cloud. I'm Richie Zellon, and I want to welcome you back to the Jazz Guitar Channel. And if this is your first time and you're passionate about the art of playing jazz guitar, I want you to know that I post weekly tutorials on everything from bebop to post-bop improvisation, chord melody, and much, much more. So please consider subscribing and be sure to click the bell icon so you won't miss anything. Before I give you the rundown on my 10 semi-hollow body choices, I have a disclaimer. I am reviewing these choices as a jazz player and not as a guitar tech or salesperson. I can only review what I have had a chance to play. So if I don't mention your favorite semi-hollow, it doesn't mean that it isn't good. It just means that either I am not familiar with it or I didn't personally care for it. Now remember, taste is subjective. And just because I like or dislike a certain guitar, it doesn't mean that you will. So to sum it up, this is my list of 10 semi-hollows compiled for those that know my playing and my experience from watching my lessons on this channel and have requested that I share my opinion. So now that I got that out of the way, let me begin. I have divided the 10 guitars that follow into two categories. Budget semi-hollows, which are priced under $1,000, and the rest which are typically anywhere above $1,000 to $3,000 tops. I am focusing mainly on the size of each guitar's body and neck, as well as its scale, the woods used, and the main electronics, which I believe are the pickups. If you want further information on the hardware, I suggest that you look it up in the manufacturer's website. So let's begin with my 4 budget choices. Number 1, the Epiphone ES339. And for approximately $500, this is a good choice for someone who is budget conscious and wants a versatile guitar, maybe to study jazz while playing some blues on the side. Who knows? It has a reduced size body, smaller than the ES335, but a bit wider than a Les Paul. So it is light and very comfortable to carry around. The body is laminated maple wood. The scale is 24 3/4 inches. And it has a mahogany neck with rosewood fingerboard. And the width at the nut is 1 11/16 of an inch. It also has 2 all-nickel Classic Pro humbuckers. Now, if your budget allows you to spend an extra $200, you can get the current version of one of the very first semi-hollow bodies to be made, along with the Gibson ES335. And I am referring to number 2, the Epiphone Sheraton 2 Pro.
Oops.
For approximately $700, this one is a step up from the 339 and it's worth the extra bucks. Unless, of course, you are set on the previous model's smaller body. The Sheraton has a laminated maple body similar in size to that of the Gibson ES335. The scale, again, is 24 3/4 inch. It has a 5-piece hard maple walnut laminated neck, and the width at the nut, again, is 1 11/16 of an inch. It features Epiphone's Pro-Bucker humbucker pickups. Number 3, the Ibanez AM93QM Artcore Expressionist. This guitar, which you can probably grab for around $650, is worth checking out before you decide to get an Epiphone. Even though Epiphone is a pioneer in semi-hollows, Ibanez puts out some very good stuff these days and has become a serious contender, especially in this price range. The AM93QM has a laminated maple body like the Sheraton does. The scale again is 24 3/4 inch. It has a 3-piece mahogany and maple neck, and the width at the nut again is 1 11/16 of an inch. The body depth is 2 5/8 of an inch, which makes it deeper than the other semi-hollows here. The pickups are 2 Super 58 humbuckers. With that, we're ready for my last choice in the budget category. Number 4, the Peerless Sunset. For around $950, this is a good guitar which easily rivals other semi-hollows in a higher price range. I just wish they would be easier to find in the United States. I don't know about you, but regardless of how good the reviews may be, I personally like to be able to walk into a store and actually try out a guitar before buying it. And that is because not every guitar of a given model and brand feels or plays the same. But back to the Sunset, it has a laminated body with a depth of 1.73 of an inch. The scale is the customary 24 3/4 inch, sometimes called Gibson scale. Has a maple neck with a rosewood fingerboard, and the width at the nut, like most of these guitars, or all of them so far, is 1 11/16 of an inch. Interestingly enough, Peerless claims it has 2 Epiphone 57 classic style humbuckers. And I'd love to try the Epiphone Sheraton and this guitar, the Sunset, side by side. And that covers my 4 choices under $1,000. Next are the rest, which are priced above $1,000 but below $3,000. And remember, these are just approximate prices for new models and will vary with time and, of course, with location. So number 5, the Eastman T186MX. And like Peerless, Eastman is a newer guitar manufacturer which has started introducing some affordable quality instruments in the past 15 years or so. And when I say affordable quality, I am not kidding. This guitar you can pick up for around $1,900, but the interesting fact is that unlike some of the more expensive models I yet have to cover here, this is the only semi-hollow that has a carved body. In other words, it is not laminated. The body top is made of solid maple and the back and sides are solid mahogany. The body depth is 1 3/4 inches, and the scale is different too. It is 25 inches. So the neck here is mahogany with an ebony fingerboard, but the width at the nut is what I love the most. It is 1 3/4 inches, and this is slightly wider than the other semi-hollows. And if you're a jazz player and you play a lot of chord melody, this will make it easier since your fingers aren't so cramped together. You have more independent control over the inner voices in a chord, especially when using counterpoint in the harmony. The pickups here are two Seymour Duncan Seth lovers. This one is very tempting, at least for me. Number 6, the Ibanez AS200. This semi-hollow, which you can pick up new for around $2,300, is part of the Ibanez Art Star series. And if I'm not wrong, this is what John Scofield used back in the 80s. The scale is 24 3/4 inch. It has a laminated maple body, and the maximum body depth is 2 5/8 of an inch. It comes with a mahogany set-in neck, and the width at the nut is 1 11/16 of an inch. The pickups are 258 humbuckers. And we're ready to move on to my first of 3 Gibson choices. As most of you know, Gibson, which later purchased Epiphone, was the manufacturer of the first semi-hollow bodies. So it would be unforgivable to do a listing of semi-hollows and not mention any of the Gibson choices. After all, they are, or should I say, were, the standard to which every new semi-hollow was, or sometimes even is, compared to. So, number 7, the Gibson ES330. And this is a favorite among a lot of jazz players. You could probably pick one up these days for around $2,300 or less. Emily Remler used to play one, as did Grant Green. And like practically all Gibsons, the scale again is 24 3/4 inch, and the body is laminated maple. Has a mahogany neck with a rosewood fingerboard, and again the width at the nut is 1 11/16 of an inch. The main difference of this guitar to the others in the ES series are its pickups. This time they're not humbuckers, but instead P90s. And this brings us to the most popular semi-hollow body in history. Number 8, the Gibson ES335. And this baby's price new currently fluctuates anywhere between $2,500 and $3,000. And as most of you know, it set the standard for the specs featured in most of the previous semi-hollows. That is a 24 3/4 inch scale, a laminated maple body with a depth of 1 5/8 inches, mahogany neck with a rosewood fingerboard, and a width at the nut of 1 11/16 inches. The current models feature 2 MHS2 humbuckers, which personally I can't tell you much about because I'm not familiar with them. So the question I often get from my students is, if the Gibson ES335 sets the standard for semi-hollows, how come you choose to play a different brand's version of the same guitar? And to answer this, I'll be honest. If you can get your hands on a Gibson ES335 made at the original Kalamazoo, Michigan factory, you're most likely getting a great guitar. However, after Gibson was acquired by different owners and sold the factory and left behind the original luthiers, they have gone through lots of ups and downs in terms of consistency in their craftsmanship. Furthermore, at the time of this taping, Gibson is in serious financial trouble. So having said that, when I was in the market for a semi-hollow over 10 years ago, all my friends at different music stores warned me about the inferior quality on some of the Gibsons they were selling. At the time, I was introduced to Heritage guitars by a couple of my students. Heritage, if you don't know, was started by the original Gibson luthiers who stayed at the original factory and started their own company. They hand make all their guitars according to the original Gibson specs and sell them at a slightly lower price. So I tried several of their guitars at their biggest dealer and found that they were not only several $100s cheaper than the same Gibson model, but actually superior in quality. So I've purchased several of them since, which brings me to my next choice. Number 9, the Heritage 535. If you watch my videos, you've seen me playing one of these. It's pretty much identical to the Gibson ES335 in specs, so I'm not going to go into that. The pickups are usually Seymour Duncan Seth lovers, but I have Lowler humbuckers on my 25th anniversary model. You can usually pick up a new Heritage 535 these days for anywhere in between $2,500 and $2,700. And with that, we've arrived at my final choice. And remember, this listing is not in order of preference, but instead in order of price range. And this model, which isn't made anymore, is among my favorite in the Gibson ES style of semi-hollows. Number 10, the Gibson ES347. You can find one of these used these days for anywhere between $2,500 and $3,000. Personally, I don't know why Gibson discontinued them. They're great guitars. I know 2 guitarists that have one, and every time I play them, I fall in love with them. I personally like them better than the ES335, both in terms of tone and playability. Even though the general specs are the same as those of the 335, the size is slightly different, not a whole lot, and there is something about the neck that also feels very different. It's just a lot sturdier, and the notes seem to ring and sustain better. I'm sorry I can't be more detailed, but I can't really find any more technical info on it. So you'll have to live with that. So on that note, I'd like to conclude my list of 10 great semi-hollows for jazz. If you know of other great semi-hollows I didn't cover here, by all means, please share them with us in the comment section down below. We want to hear it from an unbiased player. We want to hear it from your experience and not from the local guitar dealer. So I'd love to hear your comments, and also I welcome any questions you may have. Hope you've enjoyed this lesson, and if you haven't subscribed yet, please do so, and be sure to click on the bell icon so you won't miss anything. Have fun, and see you in the next video.